Euthanasia has long been a contentious ethical issue, but is it a human right to end your own life? With advances in medical technology, euthanasia is becoming more accessible, and it's important to consider its legal implications. Let's explore what it means to choose death. So what does human rights law say? The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights details the human rights that could be affected if euthanasia were legalized. The right to life, freedom from cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment, right to respect for private life, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. The right to life. The key question here is, what does a right to life include, and should it encompass a right to die? The right to life could be argued to be the most important right we have. Without guarantee of this right, all other rights would be devoid of meaning. Under human rights law, governments must not deprive a person of life arbitrarily or unlawfully. Governments are required to take appropriate steps to protect the right to life. They also need to consider the right to life when making decisions that affect its citizens. The European Court of Human Rights is the only court to have ruled on this issue. They ruled that the right to life does not include a right to death, primarily because life is to be protected by law and cannot be taken away intentionally. Freedom from cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment. Governments have an obligation to protect their citizens from ill treatment. The purpose behind the prohibition on cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment in Article 7 is to protect both the dignity and the physical and mental integrity of the individual. It's debatable whether the obligation for protection requires governments to allow voluntary euthanasia, where the only option for a person is to endure what they consider to be unbearable suffering. A prohibition on voluntary euthanasia may force people to live with extreme and chronic pain, which could infringe on their human rights. Right to respect for private life. The right to privacy gives rise to a right to one's own body, and therefore provides protection of individual autonomy, which includes actions that may be detrimental to a person's own health. The question is whether legislation which prohibits voluntary euthanasia meets an interference with the right to privacy. The right to respect for private life includes an individual's right to decide by what means and at what point his or her life will end, provided they have the required capacity, and the right to decline consent for treatment which might have the effect of prolonging their life. Refusals to allow euthanasia despite the express wishes of the patient may interfere with the right to privacy, but a blanket ban on euthanasia can also be justified as necessary in a democratic society for the protection of the rights of others. Limitations are permissible if it is for the greater protection of society. The main concern here would be that legalizing euthanasia would be a slippery slope that could get out of hand. Freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, but thought is not the same as acting upon your beliefs. Article 18 distinguishes between the freedom to hold a belief and the freedom to manifest that belief through action. As with the right to respect to private life, freedom to manifest one's religion or beliefs may be subject to limitations that are necessary to protect public safety, order, health, or the fundamental rights and freedoms of others. It is clear that freedom to hold a belief is broader than the freedom to act upon it. This would not infringe on human rights law because as an individual you are free to think and keep your beliefs. Arguing that the right to life also grants a right to death may be unfounded, but there is compelling reason to support an additional right to choose whether to live or die. There is not an established right to die under international human rights law, and governments must not only refrain from violating the right to life, but also create conditions necessary to protect that right. So it seems that if a government were to legalize euthanasia, they would actually be going against current human rights law. Freedom from cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment is one human right that is likely to be violated if euthanasia were to be refused. The right to respect for private life and the right to freedom of thought both have the potential for violation, but the safety of society at large is likely to be deemed more important for it to ever be recognised. It is a human right to choose death in some areas of human rights law, but not all. It's likely that the right to life would be the main determining factor, as it is the fundamental thing that human rights law is trying to protect. As a society, we need to determine where the line lies between protecting life and not letting anyone suffer unnecessarily. What do you think about this? Do you think it should be a human right to be able to choose to end your life? Thanks for watching.